So Santa brought you a new fly tying vise. Well, as one of Santa's helpers, I'm here to help you get started with fly tying. But first, we gotta get this, oh yeah, let's go with the solid. Let's go solid lights. Gotta get our Santa vibe going here. So in this video, to get you started, we're gonna start with some must-have essential tools. We're then gonna go over some required skills that you need to know. And then we're gonna talk about a strategy for materials. So let's jump into it. I have a little tool accessory here on my vise from Renzetti. This is a tool caddy. It's non-essential. We're just gonna go over the essentials. And right here, this is what they are. The first thing you need to have is a pair of scissors to be able to cut the thread and materials. One tip I'll give you real quick is that with your scissors, never put them down. Learn to cut with the scissors always in your hand. So I just loop them off the middle finger and I spin them around the back. So then I'm tying flies, I just loop it underneath, make my cut, turn it over across the back of my hand, and then I never lose them. I use these a lot for picking out materials, and it's just your most common thing. The reason why you don't want to put them down is that it wastes a lot of time. You put it on the table, it's gonna get covered with material, I guarantee it, and then you're looking for it. They're also not easy to pick up off the table. Some manufacturers will make bent shaft scissors so they're easy to pick up off the table. Just don't put them down. Just hold on to them. Tip number one. The second thing you're gonna need is a bobbin, and the bobbin holds the thread, and that is gonna give you your thread control. So right here, I have a bobbin. My favorite bobbin is this from Rite. I love the Rite bobbins. The loom bobbins are good too, but there's tension here there's tension on the spool. It is also adjustable, and this is going to help hold tension on that hook shank when you've wrapped the thread to cinch down that material, and then it just also controls the thread. Now, you could be super rad and just hold the bobbin in your hand and just use your hand for the tension, but there's enough going on in fly tying. You don't need to add that complexity to it. Okay, so other than the scissors and the bobbin, these are the most important two tools. There are other tools that you will eventually need, but maybe you don't need right away to at least tie your first fly. Now, some of you trout fishermen are maybe thinking, man, I can't wait to be tying some cool dry flies. Well, yes, dry flies are awesome. Maybe not the first place to start because generally they're small and generally they're difficult to tie. There are some different tools that you might need for tying dry flies, like a hair stacker or something like that. But if you're strategic about the flies that you're gonna start with, you really will only need your scissors and your bobbin. Okay, let's talk about a material strategy. This is incredibly important because I own a fly shop. I see customers come in all the time and I see what they buy. And sometimes customers will come in and they'll spend $100 on materials to tie one particular fly, and maybe, I don't know, but they're probably gonna tie 4 or 6 of that fly. That's a very expensive fly. Not all of us are into fly tying because it saves us money. It's a lot of fun to tie your own flies as well. But if you're strategic about it, you can end up tying flies and actually have saving money. If you wanna see the cost comparison on tying versus buying, I have a video that you can check out that we'll link in the description below. But my first tip for you is with hooks. Don't go cheap. You're gonna spend all of your own time to create this fly. Get good hooks. I really like the hooks from Ahrex. I also have tied a lot on Daiichi and Gamakatsus. I've tied a little bit on Tiemco's, Mustads. Geez, I don't know, but I've pretty much these days, I pretty much just tie on Ahrex hooks. I really like those hooks. I like the finishes on them. I like all of the different variety of sizes as well. They have something for every single fly that I need, whether it's fresh or saltwater. Now, when it comes to thread, you could have 100 different colors of thread. You don't need that when you start off. Save some money and just buy black thread and white thread. You might not even need the black thread. You could just go white and then take a black Sharpie and color the thread. That might be a little bit too cheap. But so, you know, right here, my white thread is almost done for. I'm down at the bottom of it. I don't even know how many spools of white thread I've gone through in my lifetime. I would love to know that, actually. That'd be super fun. And then here's my black thread. I have probably 20 bobbins, and they're all set up with different materials, wires, and tinsels, and different colors of thread. And you might get there, but for now, just start with black. That's going to be able to tie a ton of streamers, a ton of nymphs. The white is going to be great for like some saltwater flies, some streamers, and dry flies. If you get really into some technical stuff, you could start, branching out, and spool thread's like $3, so it's not that big of a deal. But white and black, that's all you need for at least the first few months. Okay, I'm going to go over a couple more things to think about with a material strategy. But I'm going to jump into a big one first here. This is the fly tying material kit from Hairline, and it now comes in a newer box. I highly recommend picking this up, and this is why. So in this kit, there are all of the materials and hooks. There's thread. There's everything you need to tie 20 trout flies, 20 trout patterns. So you could tie multiple of each one. It comes with an instructional book that has some easy instructions to follow. What I've done is I've gone through the whole book, and I've created a fly tying video for every single one of the 20 flies that are in here, and those are on our YouTube channel as well. You could check those out if you want more than just the pictures. If you want step-by-step instructions, check out those videos. But this kit has all sorts of stuff in it. This is a really great way at a really reasonable price to get a bunch of different stuff and start tying. The other thing about the patterns that are in this book is that they're gonna help you with the skills of being able to progress through different levels of fly tying. You probably want to tie with like a bigger woolly bugger before you go tie like a size 18 Adams, if that makes sense. If you don't want the material kit and you just want to pick up some other materials to start tying a couple patterns, I want to share those with you in just a second. But really quick, I have a special Christmas gift for you. Surprise! It's after Christmas, and you still are getting gifts. This is amazing. So we wanted to keep spreading the Christmas cheer, and we have an introduction to fly tying course on our website. It's over 3 hours long, and I walk through a lot of different things about techniques and tools and strategies for tying flies, and we break some flies down and we tie a bunch of different flies with it. Our whole course is normally only $19, but for you, for Christmas, if you use fly tying gift as a coupon code, we're gonna give you 75% off the class. Yes, it's under $5. There's a lot of stuff on YouTube, but you're gonna waste a lot of time bouncing around from here to there. So for under $5, you're gonna get several hours of instruction that is gonna really help you progress through being a fly tyer. The stuff that you learn in the course will actually help you save money with purchasing tying materials. And so the $5 is a great investment. Hopefully we'll see you over at the course. Okay, so now you wanna get started with tying flies, and I recommend starting with a woolly bugger. There's 1,000 videos on YouTube on how to tie a woolly bugger. We have one ourselves, and you're only gonna need a couple different materials. All of the materials you need for that are in the Hairline material kit, but if you wanna buy them separately, you're gonna need material for, well, first you're gonna need hooks. You might want cone or bead for the front. You're gonna need a tail material, marabou. You're gonna need some body material, and it's gonna be some sort of chenille. This is like a speckled chenille right here. You're gonna need hackle to wrap up the body. And sometimes people will put flash in it, like crystal flash like this. It's like a twisted mylar. Or people will use a wire that they wrap up over the hackle to create more durability with the fly. There's not a lot of materials you need. You can even just get black. You could get all the materials in black, and then you could get a couple of those materials in olive or an olive brown, and then you can mix and match them so you can create a little bit of variation in the colors with not having to buy a bunch of new material as well. That is a great pattern to start with because it's going to help teach you about proportions, which are really important. It's going to help you with tying in a tail material, hackle material, body material, and so it's got a lot of different elements that other flies share. Okay, the first thing we're going to start with is we are going to start with placing the hook in the jaws of the vise. One of the critical things to remember is to not put the hook bend too close to the tip of the jaws. This can actually chip the jaws. You want to have, and it puts a lot of pressure in one spot that can bend the hook. So some vices will have an adjustment on it. So just kind of look at what kind of vise you have and see what the adjustment is for hook placement. But the hook that I'm using here is a size 6 streamer hook. Ideally, we want this hook we want the shank to be straight. Press down on the top of the hook. You don't want that hook to slide out of the jaws. You also don't want this so tight that when you press it down, clamp it down, that it crimps the hook or damages the hook in any way. Okay, so hook in the jaws. If you put the hook really far back in the jaws, you just don't have any pressure back here to really hold it. And so really you want to have maybe a 45-degree angle across that bend of the hook. Okay, now we're going to start with our thread, and I'm going to use this blue thread just so it's a little bit more visible. And generally, there's 2 different ways you could do this. You're almost always going to start towards the back of the fly, and you're going to work your way forward. And so with the thread is waxed, and the material will stick to the thread. If you just lash the material onto the shank of the hook, then it's going to spin on you, and it's going to be really hard for it to really cinch down. So we want to have a thread base on the hook to attach the material to. So to put the thread on there, let's start with that. This is what I do. I hold the thread. Okay, so first, how do you get the thread in the bobbin? There's a tool called a bobbin threader. I never use it. I just take the end of the thread. Sometimes I have to cut it to get it straight. And I feed the thread into the end of the bobbin, and then just suck on the end of the bobbin like a straw and pull that thread out. So I hold the thread and I make a couple wraps forward, and then I angle back over those wraps that I just started with. And at this point, I can make a bunch of wraps. You can actually take the thread and just pull the opposite direction, and it'll just break off most of the time. Or you can use your scissors and make a quick little cut, and then you're good. But I'm just working the thread back because I want to have that thread base to be able to lash that material onto. Not always, but most flies, you don't want to tie down the bend of the hook. You want to stop before it starts to turn. Sometimes with like dry fly emergers, you might tie down the bend of the hook, or with scuds, or maybe some different kind of curved hook nymphs. But generally where you stop, that thread is going to hang down, and you want it to be about where that barb is. If it's past the barb, it's probably too far. So I've made a few extra wraps here at the back, and that's just really to create that thread base so that material is going to cinch down really easily. On bigger flies, you can get away with having extra wraps of material and extra wraps of thread and stuff like that because you have more to work with. When you start getting into smaller nymphs and smaller dry flies, excessive wraps really affect the way that the fly looks. And you have to be more careful with that. Okay, I'm not really tying a fly. I'm just wanting to demonstrate some different techniques and tactics, but you got to start with something. So what I've done here is I've taken some black rabbit strip, cut a small segment of it. With marabou and rabbit and a lot of different natural materials, they can get out of control and they can get static and stuff like that. And I'm often licking my fingers and controlling the fibers that way. But it'd probably be maybe better to just keep a little glass of water on the table that you can dip your finger in. I have no idea what's in these dyes and all this other stuff. So one tip I'll give you is when you're tying, use your thumb. Your thumb really can be helpful in holding material down as you go to wrap. And when you're cinching that material down, you need to make sure that there's enough wraps so that that material is not going to get pulled out, or it's not going to spin or move on you. So a couple nice wraps. Now, your distance of thread off the bobbin is important. If you just have like too short of a like a hang down here, it's controlled, but you don't have a lot of give in the system, and so it's possible to break the thread a little bit more often. Conversely, if you have all of this excess thread, when you wrap around, you can't keep tension on the hook very easily on the thread. So you really want to have just a few inches that will allow you to have, look how much stretch there is when I pull down on that. Here, let me get a better angle. So that give, when you have like 4 inches of line out, it gives you a little bit more to work with and play with. Now, when you're choosing materials, if they're natural materials, there's going to be a lot of variation in them. Like, for example, here's some saddle hackle, and I have some feathers that are like really thick and webby, and others that are really wispy. And so you can kind of pick one for the way that you want that fly to be designed. So I'm going to start with this saddle hackle here, and I've kind of decided now at this point, I didn't really have a plan going into this, that I'm tying some sort of like woolly bugger thing, but with a bunny tail instead of a marabou. I just don't have any marabou with me here at the moment. So I'm going to actually take this feather and I'm going to tie it in at the tip of the feather. And then that way, when I wrap the feather forward, because the fibers are shorter at the top, I want to have those shorter fibers at the top, and I want it to get longer towards the front. So I tie that in with just a few wraps, a few solid wraps, and I cut the tip of the feather. And then now, this is chenille. I'm just digging around in this hairline material box, just trying to find stuff for the demonstration purposes. A lot of times what I like to do with this material is I will leave all of it in the bag. I have no idea where the bag is for this stuff, but I'll leave it all in the bag and then just in that Ziploc, and then just kind of feed out a little bit out of the corner, or I'll cut the bottom corner of the bag. And then that way it will hold the material and kind of keep it all controlled. So one more thought is, like, when you're in the back of the fly here tying, make sure that you don't wrap down and around the bottom of the hook. Because that thread is gonna cause problems. The fly is gonna unravel on you once that thread breaks. And okay, moving my thread up to the front of the fly, and then I'm going to wrap my material forward. So generally, we're always working from close to away from us, and so I'm going to wrap over and away. What I'm going to do, this vise is a rotary vise, and it can spin. And so this is a bobbin rest. I'm going to just tie a half hitch knot here, and a half hitch knot. It's a loop of line, but the bobbin is on the inside of the loop. So that bobbin on the inside of the loop cinches down and creates a knot. So I'm tying that off. I'm just going to let my bobbin hang here off the cradle, and then I'm going to use the rotary feature here, and I'm just going to spin this material forward. I'm not going to go all the way to the front. I want to leave some room to work at the end, because I'm going to need to tie off my fly here eventually. So I just cross the material, make a wrap or two over it, and then I'll come back with the scissors. I cut it close. Don't cut your thread. Now I want to make sure that these fibers aren't going to be crowding the eye of the hook. So I'm going to stroke those fibers back, and then I'm gonna make a couple turns back further. And then now I have this feather. So I could have put wire back here as well, just to add durability to the fly, but I didn't. And then I'm just spiral wrapping this forward, and I kind of use my finger as I come around and I have to let go. I use my other hand to hold on to it so it doesn't go anywhere. Here at the front, I have a little bit of extra feather, which is just what I wanted. And I'm going to tie, or I'm going to do one extra loop on there to give it a little bit more fullness around the top. Cut my material. Okay, I put a good thread head on there. On smaller flies, I'll put like just barely anything. And now I need to tie off. The fly. And so to do this, I could do a series of half hitches. You know, I could just kind of create these half hitches over it to tie that knot. But the knot that I really want to do here is called a whip finish. There's a tool that does a whip finish, but you can also just do it with your fingers. And so I just put my fingers on the thread, and then I'm going to make a loop as if I'm going to do a half hitch, and then I'm going to turn my fingers over, and I'm going to create these loops over the thread here that I'm pulling back straight. I pull this thread and it creates that knot. Okay, there's my little black rabbit strip tail woolly bugger thing. It's a cool little fly. But there you go. There's just a couple tips and tricks for you. Check out that class. It's only it's less than $5, and we're gonna go over a ton of different techniques and tools and materials and all that different type of stuff. Make sure you subscribe to our channel to get all the updates of the things that we have coming out, and Merry Christmas.